were a couple of kind of mainstream stories that were covered, and I think that this got lost in the shuffle. And somebody actually specifically had asked to make sure that we covered this out. And last week we covered the story about Amir Locke and how he was gunned down basically in his sleep. He was startled after a no-knock warrant. They bust down the door at 6 a.m. The cops fire within, he reaches for his gun. Cops fire within seconds, and Amir Locke is dead. And so, justice. People are seeking justice. People are angry.
And they should be.
And we all are. I'm angry too. And so they organized a protest in Portland, and it turned horribly wrong. Black Lives Matter organized a protest to show solidarity and to say never again. This happened on February 20th, last Sunday. On Saturday night, a man opened fire, and this was actually before the protest had even started. They were just gathering in the park. Again, this is not the first instance of right-wing vigilantism against Black Lives Matter protesters, and probably won't be the last. The shooting victim chooses to remain anonymous out of fear for her safety. Okay, they'd been assisting from the victim's story. They'd been assisting with traffic safety when a man angrily approached them, yelled at protesters for being in his neighborhood, and within seconds opened fire. And June Knightley, 60-year-old woman, was killed. 4 other people hospitalized. So Portland was the site of one of the most intense and courageous confrontations, of course, against the state by BLM protesters in 2020. I wanted to shout out who wrote this article. Julia Wallace, Left Voice. Thank you so much, really. Left Voice has been really doing outstanding work the last couple of months. So Portland was one of the sites for BLM protests, of course, multiracial contingents of youth, although, again, there has been an escalation in violence in Portland going on. Portland mayor has continuously criticized BLM protesters, creating a political atmosphere that effectively encouraged and legitimized attacks against protesters. Again, this is Julia's opinion here, but that by criticizing them, it's it's encouraging people to stand up to violent demonstrators. I think that he might be talking also about the Proud Boys and 3%ers and the right wingers that are there, but some people also interpret that to say they in right wing media have made that equivalency, so they see BLM to the equivalent of the way that we see the Proud Boys, even though we know that is not the case whatsoever.
No, I agree. I think that the way that, for me anyway, the way that I look at the Proud Boys, I am certain that they look at Antifa the same way that I look at them. That's the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. So, according to witnesses, the police harassed and abused protesters and assaulted medics who were helping these. This was after the shooting. Right, Portland police have also attempted to blame witnesses for the lack of cooperation with the police. Police response to this murder and to the working and oppressed in Portland has only made matters worse for those injured and traumatized by this shooting. Okay, it was clearly a targeted attack on protesters, not an instance of random gun violence, as the Parks Commissioner tried to claim. Random gun violence? Maybe, but somebody who has been, and there's going to be an article I'm going to talk about, and I read about a little bit about Narrative where they interviewed the roommate of the shooter, and he had become more agitated since lockdown and over COVID and questioning narratives, and he was talking about the liberals, and we can only imagine what kind of media he was consuming. But again, it's not about the media, it's about being angry at the system, and this is a lashing out, unfortunately, and it's tragic, and they're being propagandized. And again, it's not to excuse the murder of June Knightley. Really, I didn't want to get her name wrong. Say her name, June Knightley. Justice for June Knightley as well. And I hate having to say justice for somebody new every week. It's beyond upsetting. I mean, it's as heartbreaking as it gets. Again, this is happening within the context, of course, of right-wing vigilantism, and they had to throw the name Rittenhouse out there because that would get you more clicks, right? Okay, in many ways, the fact that this attack is the result of failure of our system to hold such vigilantes accountable. Okay, again, I disagree personally about what happened with that legally. I think that the kid definitely went there looking for trouble, but when you look at the legal logistics of that situation, I think that unfortunately the right thing happened, even though you had a judge that was on his side. The jury had to do what they had to do in the end, and that's why everybody's angry, but you can't be angry at that kid. Whatever. Again, if he shows remorse, now he hasn't shown remorse, he's been a complete prick, so that's another story. But anyway, Left Voice, as do we, stand in solidarity with the working people of Portland and all those who are protesting police violence. And we call for the name of the murderer to be released, and we condemn the name of the anti-BLM agitations by Mayor Wheeler. I thought that they actually had released his name afterwards. Again, this was on the 21st. I believe they did release his name, and they're going to talk about this here. This was Unicorn Riot. Again, I want to shout out to Unicorn Riot. June Knightley's apparently was called T-Rex. And Unicorn Riot had a 9-minute video recapping the story. There is SSDGK. Okay. Benjamin Jeffrey Smith, who went by Polly Byrne. He's known as an alt-right-wing extremist and was a member of the counterculture furry community before being ostracized for being violent. Can't get his freak on. This is what happens, and I'm not going to make light of it or make jokes, but
there's so many going through my mind.
I know.
Sorry.
I know. I'm sure. Here you go. According to his roommate of 7 years, he talked about wanting to shoot people all the time and how much he hated Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and wore a t-shirt that says Kyle Rittenhouse, true patriot. So this dude was clearly like propagandized and radicalized and extremized. And let's see, did he have any government ties? Because usually the guys that are activated like that we find down the road at some point. Also had some kind of FBI contacts. Okay. Social media accounts. Yeah, he follows Andy No and typical extreme, the alt-right dude that we've seen this profile and seen a guy like this all over spewing all kinds of nonsense. And this is, it ends up like this when they keep getting radicalized and they don't get held accountable. And that's,
It continues. The person who left the pipe bombs in DC January 6th, still free, still roaming. I know who it is.
They know who it is. And he's still
I know who it is. It's a woman in Florida.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they held solidarity marches both in at Normandale Park in Portland and in New York City as well. Again, this has been incredibly frequent over the years, talking about protesting. And shortly before the mass shooting by Smith on the 19th, Portland officers killed a man in Southwest Portland. Portland police killed 4 people total in 2021, shot a total of 8. And again, solidarity rallies held were in Minneapolis and Brooklyn. And then I wanted to make mention. I think it was all the way at the bottom. This is again a great article. I'll put this in the show notes, of course, and in the Substack, which I encourage everybody to go to. I showed that at the beginning at leftist.today, and you'll be able to see all the links. But I read somewhere that there were 90 killings in Portland, 90 murders in Portland last year. And that was up from only 61 the year before, and it's like an all-time high. So something is clearly going on there. There's been a heavy spike in violence. And we've got
people are still out of work. People the people who've lost their jobs are never going to get them back. And when you throw poverty in someone's face, when you throw homelessness in someone's face, and the amount of homeless people, I mean, that's climbing daily.
Yeah.
Daily. And I want to stay calm here. When you do that, when you put people in poverty, that's what's happened. The government has put people into poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's going to be crime. And your basic, theft or whatever is going to escalate and turn into something bigger and bigger and bigger because, damn it, they got to survive. And that's just... it's desperation. It's a desperation that's creating this.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Look, you lock people down for 2 years effectively. You close businesses. You put in all kinds of restrictions.
Make homelessness illegal.
It wouldn't surprise me to find out that he might have been in one of the industries that was really badly affected by COVID, like the restaurant type of industry, where they really just have not recovered. Now they're just starting to, but how many restaurants went out of business that never came back? And now new ones are popping up, but it's taking a while for that to fill. And then you've got a wage problem at this point still. So again, I wanted to call it out that there were some solidarity protests, that you had this murder happen in Portland as well on Saturday night. Again, justice for T-Rex, and may she rest in power. And we're going to continue to fight this fight. We're going to continue to call out these things. We're going to continue to call for justice for Amir Locke and against these no-knock warrants, because that's what led to this. Think about that. These cops busting in on this guy at 6 a.m. and killing him is what ended up leading to this woman in Portland being killed 3 days later. I mean,
60 out of every 100 warrants that are, literally rubber stamped are no-knock warrants. 60% of them. That's scary. Because considering that when the no-knock warrant things first started happening, it was like 12 a year for the entire country.
Unbelievable.
And now, and this is, out of every 100, 60 of them are no-knock warrants. And they're rubber stamped. They don't even look into anything. Look at the people, that couple who were murdered down there in Texas a couple of years ago. They were murdered.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they were.
And it's just because nobody looked into the information. It got rubber stamped and passed right on through.
Police accountability report, but also these websites like you're talking about, where they're washing things through. And we're gonna again get to some of the stuff that you've been covering, that you've been asking me, that you shared with me earlier, and earlier in the week for us to cover tonight. But wow, that again, I hate to do that, but I thought it was really important to at least cover it, and to showcase that this happened, and that we stand in solidarity with the community in Portland, and we denounce this happening 100%. This kind of violence, and we encourage protests like this. And how are we supposed to peacefully protest? How are we supposed to express our frustration, anger, rage with the government that's acceptable? Because every way that they've tried is so far unacceptable, and leads to their to violence and police violence against citizens. Usually unarmed citizens. And in this case, this wasn't police violence against unarmed citizens. This was right-wing violence. And again, violence against unarmed citizens caused by narratives and caused by, again, this is, I'd say it is media influenced, and propaganda works. Propaganda is effective. Propaganda activates people. And how influenced was it by media or by the community around him, which I also don't want to dismiss.